In our previous video, video number 6, we discussed certain methods of collecting primary data. The first being direct personal investigation, indirect oral investigation was the second, information from correspondence was the third, and the fourth one was telephonic conversations or interviews. Now we are going to look into the fifth one, which is the mailed questionnaire, in our video number 7. As the name tells, mailed questionnaire, questionnaires that are mailed to people. So questionnaire here is mailed along with a covering letter that gives them the information as to why this questionnaire, with a self-addressed stamped envelope. Now these kind of questionnaires are conducted when research and other official, non-official agencies want to investigate. This kind of questionnaire is conducted when the field of investigation is very large and you need to reach out to many number of people at the same time. However, the people should be literate and ready to cooperate. This kind of investigation is conducted when high level of secrecy is to be maintained. However, there is a demerit, and that is the lack of interest of the respondent. The respondent may not be really interested in answering the questionnaire. As soon as he receives the mail, he might just leave it away and might not be interested at all in answering the questions. Then the sixth one is the questionnaire filled by enumerators themselves. Here, the information is collected directly from the informants, like the government or the research institutes. This type of questionnaire being filled by enumerators is generally seen when census is conducted. The enumerator comes home, asks a number of questions from the respondents, and fills the forms on his own, or the questionnaire on his own. This type of collection of data is done when there is wide coverage needed, and also when accurate and reliable information is needed. Since this is directly from the respondents and filled by the enumerators, the data is accurate and reliable. However, this method also has a demerit, that it is very expensive and time consuming, since the enumerator has to go from door to door or person to person to fill the questionnaire on his own. Hence, it is time consuming. And a number of enumerators will have to be employed to conduct this type of a survey. The other one could be partiality. Inefficiency on part of the enumerators coupled with personal bias may affect the results of the inquiry. And then if the investigator is not properly trained, the results are likely to be misleading. Let's also discuss what a questionnaire is and what are the principles that guide us through a questionnaire. A questionnaire is a list of questions related to the problem under investigation. So there is a purpose why a questionnaire is being conducted. So what are the principles that need to be followed in preparing a questionnaire? You must have come across certain questionnaires when you go to a mall or when somebody wants to know about their product. So questionnaires are given. So the principles are, first one, the covering letter. It should have objectives and scope. It should ensure respondents about their secrecy, and that it should also offer incentives. So unless an incentive is given, a respondent might not be really interested in filling up the questionnaire. Second, that questions. How should the questions be? So decision regarding questions is also very, very important. There are 4 types of questions that can be asked. The first one is simple alternative questions like yes and no. For example, do you have a car? Are you interested in higher studies? Yes, no questions. The second one are the multiple choice questions, where you find a question and then you find 4 boxes in which you have to put a tick. For example, how do you reach office? And the options might be given by a two-wheeler or a four-wheeler or by a bus. So those are the MCQs. Then certain questions are specific information questions, which start from general questions and proceed to more specific ones. They are asked to obtain some specific information. For example, how many members are there in your family, and are you employed or unemployed, type of questions. Then there are open questions. The open questions are to be answered by the respondents in their own words. You must have come across some questions like I love Maggie because dash. So those are the open questions where you have to write your view. Now the other questions could be how can the problem of unemployment be solved? How can the industrial growth rate be maintained? Certain questions. Then the first 2 types of questions, the simple alternative yes-no questions and the multiple choice questions, are called closed-ended or structured questions. Whereas those questions which need specific information or open questions are called as unstructured or open-ended questions. Then, what is the number of questions that should be asked in a questionnaire? The number of questions should be few and relevant questions. These questions should be simple and short. They should not irritate the respondent, and the respondent should be willing to write the answer. Then, these questions should be logically arranged. Logically arranged meaning that one question should be followed by the other. Like first ask, what is your education? Are you employed? And then what is your salary? The next is that the questionnaire should look attractive. Attractive, that it should be, the printing and the paper should be of good quality and enough space should be provided for answers. Too many questions should not be stuffed in little place. Then, what should be avoided? Questions that need calculations should be avoided. Nobody would be willing to answer a question where he has to sit down and calculate something and then write. So that is time consuming, and any respondent would not like to spend his time on answering a questionnaire of that sort. Then, no personal questions should be asked, because this might affect the pride and sentiments of the respondents. Also, questions pertaining to their private affairs should not be asked. Then, questions that are leading should be avoided, because this gives a clue about how the respondent should answer. So the respondent should be free to give his answers, and one should not lead him into what the enumerator or investigator wants him to answer. And the last is pre-testing. Once the questionnaire is made, we must pre-test it in order to modify it. So if there is any modification or correction required, in order to make it more attractive, to see whether the questions are logically arranged, whether they don't hurt the respondent in answering the questions, everything can be done once a pre-testing is conducted. So here is a sample questionnaire I have taken from one book. Consumers' preference of newspaper, English and Hindi. This is a sample questionnaire. And it says, please put a tick mark in the relevant box of each question. Now it's divided into two sections, section A and section B. In section A, you have the profile of the respondent. Name, address, age, sex, male or female. So just put a tick over here. And then whether they have a phone. So what is a landline number or what is a mobile number. Then educational qualification, whether he is an undergraduate, graduate, postgraduate, or he holds a professional degree. And then he has the other question that asks number of members in the family, whether there are 1 to 3 members, 4 to 6 members, or more than 6 members. So this is also a multiple choice question where you just had to put a tick. Then the next question asks about the occupation, whether he is in service, manufacturing, trade. Of course there are many, so he has given here other. So he actually wants some information from these people. If it is somebody else, then he can put the other. Then what is his monthly income? Less than 20,000, 20,000 to 40,000, 40,000 to 60,000, more than 60,000. So just put a tick whichever category the respondent belongs to. Then there is section B that asks about the consumer preference of newspaper. Now here he is getting into the actual business. That is what the sample questionnaire is all about. So which language of newspaper do you buy? English or Hindi? Then how many newspapers do you purchase daily? If it is English, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. If it is Hindi, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So whatever is the number of newspapers they buy. And which newspaper do you purchase? If it's in English, then Times of India and Hindustan Times, Indian Express, others. So these are the ones that he has given a choice for. So a questionnaire can be made in this format. There are some yes-no questions also. Do you find newspapers important part of your life? Do you go through all supplements of newspapers? So these are all yes-no questions. And then he also has, are you attracted by advertisements and classifieds? Yes, no. And the last one is any suggestions. So this is an open-ended question. Any suggestions you'll have to write on your own, in your own words. So this is an open-ended question. So this is one of the models of how to prepare a questionnaire.